Hi everyone, I am Tribal Instincts and we need to talk about Hellblade. This video is going to be a little bit different than my typical video. I'm gonna ramble kind of like in the old days, okay? But this is something that we really need to talk about, okay? Because Hellblade, and I'm going to use a word here called emotion, but I don't just mean sadness. I don't just mean like the typical things that we say are emotional. I mean like the human state of comprehension of emotion, okay? This game played with all of my emotions more than anything else I have ever experienced in any media of any type ever in my life. And I'm actually not exaggerating, okay? I have never had a game experience or a movie experience or any sort of experience in entertainment that has messed with my head like this ever, okay? So to understand what this is, like it's really, really hard for me, and I've thought about this a long time, it's going to be really hard for me to really express what this is, so I'm really going to try. However, to start off, this game uses something called binaural sound, which is a recording technique which mimics how the actual human brain and ears work, meaning they actually have two separate ears surrounded by an actual fake head. What this does is it allows sound to bounce around and behave naturally so that instead of just like stereo, where you can sort of like hear where it is and like sort of like in your head, you know what I mean? Like if you have it just in the right ear, it sounds right here. Just in the left ear sounds over here. If you have both of them on, it sounds like it's coming in your head. Binaural sound works differently. You can actually hear like it's off in the distance. Like you can almost like point to it somewhere in your room the way that you could with real sounds. Now that is exceptional, especially in this game, because the premise of this game is you are following behind a person named Senua who is suffering from psychosis. These developers worked with doctors and were like neurologists and with people with psychosis to understand how they perceive their world, and they mimicked that. I don't have psychosis, okay, so I can't tell you how accurate it is to somebody with that, but let me tell you, as being in the hot seat and experience this, it is unbelievable. You have you have the main character, and you hear her thoughts. You're also hearing like these little whispers all around you, some of them louder, some of them closer, some of them farther away. Sometimes they're encouraging, sometimes they're like telling you like, you can't do it, you won't succeed, go forward, why is she doing this? Ha ha ha, like laughing at you. It is such a trip. It's almost indescribable. I'm gonna try to describe it though. So, and this is gonna be a little bit weird. The only time, and maybe this is why it's messed with me so much, is that I actually kind of understand like the concept of hearing voices. Now, don't take that, I'm not crazy, probably. However, a few years back, I was having a really hard time sleeping. And eventually I found a way of sort of inducing, I don't even think it was like lucid dreaming, but it was something on the edge of being awake, but being asleep too. I would get myself into a sort of a sensory deprivation state-ish, right? I would relax all my muscles, I put in earplugs, and I would get perfectly still. And after a while, I would start like hearing things. And for a while, whenever this first started, like it would actually wake me up. Like I would hear a person saying something, and there were a few times where I nearly screamed because I thought it was in my room. And I woke up, and then I didn't hear them anymore, okay? So I don't hear voices normally. However, I was able to get into the state where things started like sounding real. They sounded like they were in my room because I wasn't completely asleep yet, but I was still, my dreaming part of my brain went on, okay? So I know what this feels like, right? I know what it feels like to kind of hear these voices that sound so real. You know that they're real, but they're not. This game like mimicked that in such a creepy and mind-bending sort of way. The opening sequence has you just kind of going out on this canoe, and it's like a 5-minute long sort of credit sequence, but you're following along and you're hearing Senua's thoughts and then all the people around you. You're on the back of her canoe, right? This is a third-person game. You're on the back of the canoe and you're just kind of like moving around it, and you hear these other voices. you are one of those voices as well, as the game will tell you. This is not much of a spoiler, but very, very early on, you find out that you are one of her little pieces of subconscious, which is what, like, I think really kind of messed with me throughout this, is like halfway through it, you kind of believe it, and it is terrifying, it is exhilarating, and at one point, I almost got dizzy, like towards the end of the ride. Like, it was so bizarre, so real, so horrifying, but amazing all at the same time, is that you felt like you were following this human, right? This didn't feel like a game anymore. This felt like, remember what I said about this being a rambling type thing? I really thought long and hard about how I could like structure this video in a way that wasn't this, but I think this is the only way that I can get out sort of how I felt about this. Now, why this is spectacular is VR made this real for me, okay? So I went back afterwards and I went through the same thing with really good headphones using the binaural sound, but on my flat screen, and I felt nothing, okay? It was cool, right? I could, like, the voices were interesting, but they weren't like in my world anymore. I don't know if that really makes sense. Like, I could hear them, but it's not like, oh, I think I feel like a voice over there, or like I wasn't looking around like trying to find these voices. But in VR, they were real. They were there. Like, I could turn my head and I could like almost chase the voices, right? This is the first time where a VR game has not just been better for me than a flat screen version, right? Like, I've had several of them where they're better in VR, and some games that are just not as good in VR. But in this one, like, VR changed this in such a profound way. It was unlike, like I said, unlike anything I've ever experienced, which is not the case if it's outside of VR, right? Between the binaural sounds, between the VR, motion tracking and all that, this felt so real. And the animation, like the graphics in this game are barred like almost none. Like you're watching this character, and there's this one particular scene where it's like your first fight sequence and it doesn't go too well, and Senua starts like crawling towards you and looking at you. Her eyes, not her head, like her head falls a little bit, but then her eyes are moving around and looking at you while you hear these voices, while she's crawling at you. I nearly lost it. Like, it is indescribable. Like, that sort of that gut-wrenching feeling of there is a human in front of me that is suffering and needs my help, and I am powerless to do anything about it. Like, I'm getting goosebumps like just thinking about it. Like, it was horrific, but not like in the typical horror games. Like, this is just getting lightheaded again thinking about this. You have to experience this, okay? It is unlike anything I have ever experienced, and I am so like just in awe over the developers for what they've achieved in this. Now, how to phrase this? So this is not a review about Hellblade itself, okay? Because the gameplay itself, I found just kind of okay. There are some elements of it that are just kind of like boring. The fighting was visually interesting, but not very, very much engaging. But it doesn't matter. Like, I will play this, and I will keep playing this because the story is pulling me in. This is less of a game and more of an experience that you're following this character. And yeah, you have to help her do these things. And I say you have to help her because whenever you're playing this, you don't feel like you are the main character. Or at least I didn't. I felt like I was sitting there trying to help Senua, trying to help this person, desperately trying to get her to accomplish her goal. That's weird, okay? I have never had this type of immersion. Like, I didn't feel, like, immersion is not right. Like, I didn't feel like, in all cases, like I was there. Like, it was an out-of-body experience that was an entirely immersive out-of-body experience. You have to try it. You absolutely have to try it. Like, hell, even just, like, play the game or buy it and then just sit through the intro sequence, right? Get through your first fight scene and then refund the game. I don't even care. Like, it just, like, this game, like, everybody needs to experience this. This is what VR can add. This is what VR can do for the state of entertainment. It's not just about having the visual, like experience of you being there. Like, there are so many more things. Your audio, like VR in its current state, can imitate our senses enough to where it gives goosebumps. It kind of warps the brain. Like the best way I can find to describe it is that like while I was going through this, my brain kind of tilted a little bit, right? A little bit off axis. It was a little bit crazy. It didn't quite know what was going on. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So the gameplay itself, I give it a solid B, right? The graphics, A+, absolutely amazing. I watched a few devlogs from these guys, and they have been working on this game for years, and they've been working on VR for years, just sort of like a back project, right? They weren't dedicating their entire development team towards it. However, throughout the entire process of them developing this game, they were making sure that it would work for VR, and they tried a bunch of different things. So, like the third-person perspective, I didn't hate it. It actually made the feeling of being this out-of-body character so much more real. I would not have enjoyed this as much, I don't think, as being in the first person, okay? So the gameplay itself, like I said, it's a B, but the way that they've done it, it goes into the story. It makes you feel it. So it, like, even though it, like, if it was just the gameplay wouldn't be enough, because of it being the way it is, I will go through it and I will enjoy it, and it is amazing. Okay, so graphics, amazing. Sound, disturbing and amazing. Gameplay, solid. Overall, though, like I said, this is the most amazing thing that I've ever tried in any media experience ever. So it doesn't matter any of the negatives that I have with it. This is an experience that everybody, I think, should try, because not only is it entertainment, it also really makes you understand a mental illness that is horrifying. Like, just thinking about being in this person's shoes and having these voices and challenging what is real and what is not at every single moment of your life, that's eye-opening, okay? That is not something that somebody can tell you about and that you can understand, right? This is something that VR can do special, that nothing else has been able to do so far. Like I said, if it was just the sounds, that wouldn't be enough. You can go watch on YouTube right now if you have a decent pair of headphones. There is this story, this torture room. I don't remember the actual. I'll try to find it. I'll put a link in it where you can experience the binaural sound, where you just close your eyes and you can hear this. It's actually fairly disturbing as well, but it didn't have the same effect. Right? The way that VR adds to it is astonishing. Okay, so VR has been sort of like steady-ish, like slightly increasing in terms of its adoption. There's plenty of articles about, you know, how the adoption is not fast enough, but people that are in VR, they know they love it. There's been game after game of wave-based shooters after wave-based shooters, right? But none of it has really been a point for VR that says this has to be real. This has to go forward, right? This is it, guys. So go try Hellblade. Drop a comment. Let me know, all right? Maybe this is just me. Maybe I'm the only one that is having like this kind of like mental, like, what's the right word? But just like mental shift where it messes with my brain. Let me know if you've played this in like normal version and then VR version, or whichever way. Let me know in which order that you played this game, and let me know if you had a similar experience. I'm seriously interested, so please comment below. Tell me how you feel about this game, because I kind of need to know. Like, is my brain just sort of messed up? Like, did this sync with me on a level just because I'm kind of a little bit messed up myself? I don't know. So let me know in the comments below, and let me know if you enjoyed this video. Like, I'm sorry that this has been I don't know how long I've been doing this now. If I had to guess, probably like 30 minutes, who knows? But let me know if this rambling was just too much. I'm done here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the like button below. If you didn't, hit the downvote button and tell me what I can do to make these videos better. And if you want to see more, hit subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.